The Velkari had made many assumptions about humans. Their pale skin, their soft bodies, their curious fascination with cultivating gardens aboard their vessels, all pointed to a species of gentle plant eaters. When the human delegation arrived on Velkara Prime, the Council of Elders had prepared accordingly, fruits, grains, and the finest vegetable arrangements their chefs could devise. Grace stood at the viewport of their landing craft, watching the purple-tinged horizon of the alien world. Her auburn hair was tied back in a practical bun, and her eyes sparkled with the excitement of first contact. Beside her, Ezra checked their supplies one last time, his weathered hands moving with the efficiency of someone who'd spent years in the frontier colonies. "Think they'll like us?" Grace asked, adjusting her translator unit. Ezra grunted, a sound that could mean anything. "They invited us, didn't they?" "That's more than the Andorians did." The Velkari were a graceful species, tall with elongated limbs and skin that shimmered like oil on water. They moved with a fluid grace that made even simple gestures seem like dance. Their representative, Ambassador Threen, greeted the humans with elaborate bows. "Welcome, peaceful ones," Threen's translator chimed. "We have prepared sustenance befitting your kind." The banquet hall was magnificent, carved from a single massive crystal that refracted light into rainbow patterns. Tables groaned under the weight of exotic produce, each dish more colorful than the last. Grace smiled politely and sampled a few items, noting the bland, fibrous texture. Ezra, however, barely touched his plate. For 3 days, the diplomatic talks proceeded smoothly. The Velkari were eager to establish trade routes, to share their agricultural techniques. They spoke of their world with pride, a paradise of cultivation and careful resource management. They also spoke in hushed tones of the Drakor. The Drakor were massive predators that dwelt in the volcanic ranges beyond the settled zones. They stood 3 meters at the shoulder with scales like obsidian armor and jaws that could crush stone. The Velkari feared them, built their cities to avoid them, and occasionally lost entire settlements to their hunger. "We have learned to coexist by staying away," Threen explained during one session. "They are the apex, we are the survivors." Grace noticed Ezra's expression shift, a slight narrowing of the eyes, a tightness around his jaw. She'd seen that look before, back when they'd served together in the Colonial Defense Forces. On the 4th evening, everything changed. An alarm echoed through the compound, a low, mournful wail that sent the Velkari into panic. A Drakor had been spotted near the eastern agricultural zone, dangerously close to the settlement. The Velkari guards, armed with what appeared to be sonic deterrents, moved to evacuate the area. Ezra stood abruptly. "Where's your armory?" Threen's iridescent eyes widened. "Armory? We do not fight the Drakor. We flee. Not today." Ezra was already moving toward the landing craft. Grace followed, her diplomatic protocols warring with her military instincts. Instinct 1. Within 20 minutes, Ezra had retrieved a plasma rifle from their ship's emergency supplies. The Velkari watched in confusion as he checked the charge, his movements precise and practiced. Grace grabbed a sidearm and a field kit. "Ambassador Threen," Grace said calmly, "I recommend your people stay inside." They tracked the Drakor by following the trail of destruction, uprooted crops, shattered irrigation systems, the acrid smell of fear musk from smaller creatures. The beast emerged from a grove of spiral trees, and Grace understood immediately why the Velkari feared it. The creature was magnificent and terrible, its scales reflecting the setting sun like black fire, its roar shaking the very ground. Ezra dropped to one knee, sighted, and fired. The plasma bolt struck the Drakor in the shoulder. It roared in surprise and pain. Clearly it had never been successfully challenged before. It charged, and Ezra fired again, this time at the legs. The beast stumbled, and Grace added her own fire, precise shots targeting joints and vulnerable spots. The Drakor fell. The Velkari security force arrived to find Ezra standing over the massive corpse, checking its vitals. It was dead, a creature that had haunted their nightmares for generations. Brought down in under 3 minutes. "Waste not," Ezra muttered, pulling a field knife from his belt. What happened next would become legend on Velkara Prime. Ezra butchered the Drakor with practiced efficiency, explaining each cut to the horrified yet fascinated Velkari observers. He selected choice portions of meat, then requested access to their cooking facilities. Within hours, the compound was filled with a smell the Velkari had never experienced. Cooking meat, seasoned with herbs from the human ship's hydroponics bay. Ambassador Threen approached hesitantly as Ezra turned a massive haunch over an improvised spit. You consume flesh? We're omnivores, Grace explained, accepting a plate from Ezra. The meat was tender, rich, with a flavor somewhere between beef and venison. We eat plants too, but yes, we hunt. We've always been hunters. The apex predator of your world? Threen's voice was barely a whisper. Ezra looked up from his cooking, his weathered face splitting into a rare smile. Ambassador, humans are the apex predators of our world. We didn't get to the top of the food chain by eating salad. The revelation spread through the Velkari population like wildfire. The gentle gardeners from Earth were, in fact, descended from persistence hunters, creatures who had chased their prey to exhaustion across ancient savannas, who had conquered every ecosystem on their planet through adaptability and determination. The trade agreements were renegotiated. Now the Velkari wanted protection contracts, hunting lessons, and most surprisingly, recipes. Ezra's Drakor roast had opened their understanding not just of humans, but of possibilities they'd never imagined. As their ship prepared to depart a week later, Threen presented them with a holographic crystal, a record of the hunt, already becoming a cultural touchstone for the Velkari. You have taught us that survival is not merely avoiding predators, Threen said, but choosing when to become one. Grace smiled warmly, accepting the gift. Ezra, finishing the last of the Drakor jerky he'd prepared for the journey home, simply nodded. Ambassador, he said, if you ever need anything else cooked, you know where to find us. As the human ship lifted into the purple sky, the Velkari watched with new understanding. The humans weren't herbivores adapting to a hostile universe. They were hunters who had learned to farm, predators who had chosen diplomacy, but who had never forgotten where they came from. And on Velkara Prime, in the volcanic ranges where Drakor once ruled unchallenged, the beast sensed something new in the air, the scent of a more dangerous predator, one that wore a smile and offered friendship, but carried fire in its hands and hunger in its history. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never quite look at them the same way again. The end.